Hey guys, it's Matthew here once again, and today I want to share with you my second attempt at making a poison character. Since the poison double dipping nerfs, I don't know, 6 months, a year ago, however long ago it was. But if you remember, I did make a wasp nest dual wield assassin that used spectral throw and blade flurry, and that was successful. It did work. Long story short though, or the conclusion of that was that poison is still fine. It does work. You have to build very specifically into it, but it's almost unnecessary. In any case, I did go ahead and try to make a second character, and this time around I'm bows completely and relying entirely on tornado shot. So in the last major patch or expansion, there were quite a few little tools added for poison, you know, abyssal jewels, for example, this new flask that I'm currently using, Coralito's signature diamond flask, as well as a few other things. But basically I did want to try out another poison character, and this time not the most obvious and my first choice, which would have been Wasp Nest and Claws with Spectral Throw Blade Flurry, and that is my first choice and the primary choice for poison that I thought would work best, because it just scales really nicely with the actual weapon damage itself, the poison, and then as well as that it gives really good sustain with the life gain on hit and has a very nice defensive playstyle with the whirling blades, the life gain on hit, and decent life pool. Whereas this here, you can see, is a bow character, tornado shot. The primary, movement is running around, so that's a little bit worse for starters. And then the survivability is going to be a bit worse because I can't really stack a huge amount of life gain on hit, and leech is basically, well, pretty close to non-existent for these poison chaos characters because of the way you have to build poison these days. You reduce your initial hit to do almost nothing and then have all of your damage coming in on the back end as a secondary mod known as poison. So you do have to rely on either regen or life gain on hit, and this character currently is mostly just a bit of regen, some life flask, and some leech, which isn't particularly effective, but the main way we're avoiding damage is by just not taking it. So you can see we run around, we don't really get hit too often, and when I do, I mostly cover it up with a life flask. So as far as I could tell when making this character in the path of building, it was pretty similar to Wasp Nest, Poison, and I had to rework it entirely for bows and a few other gear choices and all that, and the damage was definitely going to be there one way or the other, whether I used Tornado Shot or Barrage if I had to in the end. The big problem was going to be fixing the playability of the character, how expensive it may be, and exactly what you need to do to, make it feel good rather than just whatever it is with a bit of damage and feeling, well, pretty average. So at this stage I have got a decent balance of life, movement speed, damage, and survivability, and it's not going to be too bad for the mapping in the end game. It is pretty satisfying for all of this, degen sort of type of attack rather than just front loading everything. It's really satisfying to see things die over time, but I'm not completely sold on the character yet. I will have to get back to you in another couple days when I get it up to around level 90. That's when I'll figure out the last few things about the build, because I still don't quite know where I'm doing my passives, how I'm gonna incorporate the rest of the life into the build, and damage. So there are still a few little kinks to work out, but it does work at the moment. Proof of concept, not too bad. And Barrage, if you use that, you can get quite a lot of poison damage at the moment. I am, however, avoiding Barrage for the moment and just pure Tornado Shot, but let me show you what the character looks like so far and what I plan to do. So the character is toxic like my chat, level 85 assassin at this point. I still don't have the last two Uberlab nodes, which would give me roughly a 20-30% damage increase because it's 2 bonus crit and an extra power charge. And besides that, we do have, the little bit of power charge here, and of course the important shit that Assassin is known for, the entire poison stuff. Now Assassin to me feels like the only real choice for these poison builds at the moment. I have tried to look around at Pathfinder and other stuff, and ultimately it looks like a lot less damage. So I don't know if it's really worth playing anything but Assassin for poison at the moment, but I'm sure there are options and ways you can make it work. I just haven't really seen it myself yet. And I am basing my character around a Lioneye's Glare. Now, it's got a lot of flat fizz to start with, good attack speed, and you don't need accuracy. Overall, it's pretty much going to be the best bow for this build you can possibly do, unless you get a really big physical bow, like 450 physical damage Harbinger, or if you go the alternate route like a Quill Rain, which a lot of people are doing right now, and stacking elemental damage with the poison gloves, Volkers, whatever they are, I think. But I'm not going that route, and in my current scenario and build, a Quill Rain is going to be a lot worse unless you really heavily stack Flat Fizz and Abyssal Jewel Fizz and stuff like that, and I just don't think it's worth it. Lioneye's Glare at the moment seems to be by far the best choice for my build. So it's pretty easy barrier of entry for your weapon by all means. And then we have a 6-link Dendrobate, which is pretty much the only chest you can use for poison builds, I think. It gives you that 7th link of lesser poison, which is real nice for the poison on hit chance. And then, of course, 25% duration and 98% damage if you have the dexterity and int, which you should have. That's just crazy. It's pretty hard to compete with that in a chest slot, so you have to pretty much do this. And that's probably the only 2 absolute staples in the build, and then the rest is trying to just get additional arrow on a quiver with some spam, some attack speed. You're looking for chaos damage with the craft. It's roughly equivalent to physical damage, so the craft from Elrond is pretty big here. A steel ring, some envy craft on that one, and then I don't have a chaos damage roll on it yet because I'm not sure if I want to keep it, and I still haven't upgraded my amulet, so it's a piece of shit. Attack speed, you know, life, whatever, resists, life, movement speed. There's really not too much that goes into this build as far as damage is concerned. It's coming largely from the passives, from the links, and then a few from jewels and you know, fine-tuning the character overall. So it's not very big on gear requirements, you know, as far as expensive and over-the-top stuff. It's really just kind of specific stuff. So in any case, that's what I'm currently working with. There are still upgrades to be made, and I will make them and show you in the next video probably. Currently though, this is pure Tornado Shot. I am running Tornado Shot with Chain and GMP, so you can see that I have 6 arrows, I think it is, in total, and then the chain aspect of it doesn't reduce your poison damage, so the only real loss here is that you're not using an extra link for poison damage, but it does help you stack your poison and clear very effectively throughout maps. So this is the, what I've been trying to do for a lot of the time. GMP and chain, and then when I'm ready for single target, pure single target, I sub in deadly elements over the chain for the 6-link, which then becomes a 6-link of Tornado Shot, Unbound Ailments, Vile Toxins, Greater Multiple Projectiles, Deadly Elements, and Mirage Archer. So there's no shortage of the sheer amount of poison supports you can put into a build. There's still a few more I could even use, and I'll show you that in Path of Building. And it's just about, you know, finding the best ones and shoving it all into a build all at once. Now, at the moment, this is what I'm running. Mirage Archer, I do feel is worth the extra output at the moment. He should be worth, you know, pretty similar to an extra gem slot like an added chaos if I were to replace it. But his huge quality of life, because whenever you're running around after attacking a bit, he's going to keep attacking, and that's precious DPS you wouldn't otherwise have if you're just on the move and you can't do something at a certain time. And he helps stave some enemies away and kill certain stragglers and stuff. So Mirage Archer, I think, feels like kind of a no-brainer, but if you don't really like him, you can certainly replace him. So that's what the 6-link there looks like. Most of the time, chain, single target, deadly elements. You got to, of course, have a Wither totem. So Wither, spell totem, faster casting, and increased duration. The new curse we're currently running is Despair, so that got split from Vulnerability. Definitely best in slot curse for this sort of build, attached to Blasphemy. Running Blood Rage for Frenzies, a Blink Arrow just to, you know, travel. Got a Frenzy, faster attacks, and Power Charge on crit setup at the moment, and I will 5-link this bow and attach a curse on hit Despair as well for single target, because this is one of the only bow builds and range builds that don't really take point blank or don't need point blank at the moment. So you won't be taking point blank, you will be hopefully shooting from a distance, and that means the Blasphemy won't always be active, so I will want a curse on hit attached to my Frenzy for such purposes. Now, the only other thing I think I really should mention is Atziri's is our flask. We do have a silver flask for Onslaught, and then the new flask, Corralito's Signature. So what it does is gives you A bit of extra poison on hit, which is always nice to try and hit 100%. Your critical strikes do not deal extra damage during flask effect, which doesn't matter because we barely have any extra damage already, so that doesn't matter at all. And then 72% duration of poisons you inflict during flask, so that's a huge bonus. To your poison duration is a very big amount of extra poison damage in the long term, and then it grants perfect agony during flask, which means you don't have to get perfect agony anymore. So it just saves a few points, and it still applies your crit multi and all that to your damage over time. The whole negative effect of your critical strikes do not deal extra damage basically doesn't mean anything because you don't deal extra damage with those anyway. Your front loading is worthless, but it does still apply that multi to your actual damage multiplier in the form of perfect agony. So you can see right around here in my current path of building, let's just say probably easier to actually visualize this with Barrage because there's bigger numbers there. So if we have Barrage in our exact setup and it's currently 1.1 million damage, now that's with a 6 link, and Mirage Archer obviously doesn't count for anything. So what we're looking at is 1.1 million against Shaper at the moment, and you take off Corralitos and that's a huge chunk of damage. Now that does factor in at the moment because I won't quite have 100% chance to poison or hit, I think, but overall it should be an absolute no-brainer in just about every poison build ever at this point. So it's kind of a stupid thing. It's just another item that says, here it is, you have to use it because it's too good not to for a certain build, and in this case that's poison, and I'm pretty sure every poison build should be using this, but someone could fact check me on that. So that's what the current 6 link looks like. That's Barrage. Now Tornado Shot's a bit weird because that's the right one there, sorry, because it's only going to show you one arrow, and Tornado Shot, as you know, it should, with the GMP, overlap and hit lots of times against a single enemy. So it only shows one arrow, doesn't factor in Mirage Archer either, so it is kind of a bit weird. 200,000 poison damage, it's obviously a lot more than that, and you should see that in the future against the endgame bosses. But yeah, that's probably all I've got for now for this character to explain at the moment. It's probably, I think, going to be worse than Wasp Nest Assassin, especially with all the new funky shit out there at the moment. But I wanted to make a bow character as sort of a bit of a different challenge from the previous character. But Mortem Morsu, I mean Wasp Nest these days, is probably going to be better, and I'll let you know how this goes when I finally fine-tuned it and give you more of a conclusion. But if you currently want to play a poison character, I do still recommend Wasp Nest Assassin. I think he's still pretty solid, pretty good, and worth playing. Hopefully I have some good news for this build in the next few days, but for now guys, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and see you next time.